So yeah, hi, I'm Astrid. I'm from Aalborg. It's a bit weird speaking in English, but I think I'll get into the habit very shortly. Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for already being a really good audience. I would like to start to tell you a little bit about myself, because then you get to know me a bit. I live in Aalborg. I'm a climate activist. I'm also a feminist, though maybe not always the best feminist. And I study economics, and I have a husband, and I have a little daughter. And I don't know, I think that's sort of it. If you have any questions, you can always ask me. And I'm here because I'm a part of the movement called Fridays for Future. It started in 2018. There was this young girl called Greta Thunberg. I don't know if you know of her, but she became a world famous climate activist, and I thought she rocked, and she sort of sparked this whole climate movement with climate strikes and the whole thing. And I was very inspired by her from the very beginning, and I got really into climate activism because of her. I mean, I was active before, but I was sort of, you know, when I was a kid, I was sort of active in everything, because everything was exciting. So I did, you know, humanitarian, I did climate, I did a little bit of feminism, and then I basically did too much, and I didn't have time for all of it. But you know, it was fun. And that's what I'm here to talk about today. I want to tell you how climate activism is also activism for women's rights, and I want to maybe inspire you to become climate activists as well as feminists. With the climate crisis, we're going into a future. We're facing a future where there's going to be more droughts. There's going to be worse weather, some extreme and terrible natural disasters. There's going to be more wars over resources. There's going to be rising sea levels, collapse of ecosystem. In a lot of countries, and a lot of places here in the world, the average temperature will rise so much that they will become virtually uninhabitable. And as a result of that, not only will people not be able to live there, but they won't be able to grow food there. And it's going to put a lot of pressure on our global agricultural systems. And when all this happens, the people that are going to suffer the most are going to be women. They're going to be poor women, they're going to be African, Asian women mainly, and they're going to suffer from this because they are poor, because we live in a world where we don't prioritize them, we don't think they're important, and they're going to do it because they're going to suffer the most because they live in societies where they don't have the same rights. They don't have the same sort of opportunities as the men do. In many of these societies, they also have very few opportunities because some of these societies are undemocratic and, well, sort of authoritarian societies. And I think, you know, that when I do this climate activism, what I think about is not only what it will mean for me here in Denmark, well, what it will mean for my child, because I mean, it has some bad consequences for us, but we'll live. But what I really think about is women and children, other places in the world, how it will affect them. And I think the reason why I think about that is because I am a feminist. And as a feminist, you have to think about the solidarity with other women, with other women in the world, even though they have a completely different life from you. And that's why I do it. Another thing I would like to talk about today, I would like to talk about the climate activists I know. Because the climate activists that I know, that I work with, that are part of Fridays for Future, they are primarily young women. We have some great young men as well. We have some great older people, both men and women. But there is a vast, I would say a majority of very young women, some are as young as 13, 12 years old, at least in Denmark. And I think that really shows on the way that people have received our movement, and I think it really shows in the way that our movement works. And this is something that I'm very proud of. I think the reason why there's so many young women, teenage girls, in the climate movement, among climate activists today, is because we as a society, we bring up women, we bring up girls to be very caring, to be omsorgsfulle, to take care of others, to put others' needs before them. And you know, in some ways, that sort of, as women, that sort of screws us, because we're always meant to put other people first. But I think it also is a strength, because it gives us these social movements where there's a lot of young girls, there's a lot of young women, because they're taught to think of others before themselves. They really throw their passion, their energy into making the world better, and I think that's great. But I also think that being a movement of that consists of a lot of young women and a lot of young girls is sometimes, what can you say, is sometimes the reason why we have a bigger backlash. I think if we were made up of old white men, we would have less of a backlash. I really think so. Because some of the ways that people respond to to Greta Thunberg and other prominent young activists is really incredulous. I mean, you would think that a girl standing up telling people to listen to scientists and to maybe, you know, save the world would be applauded and would be thanked, but instead you have this barrage of sexist trolls and douchebags who tell her that she's being hysterical, she's being emotional, overly emotional, that she's brainwashed, but she's also brain damaged, like you can somehow both, I don't know. And that she's a child, she doesn't know what she's talking about, and that she should sit down and shut up. Does this sound familiar to any of you? Just a little bit, you know? Just a little bit. And I think, and I've always found it so strange, how does a 17-year-old girl like Greta and other girls that we have in our movement, how do they provoke these old white men, well, and other people also, but mainly older white men? How do they provoke them that much? I mean, I think it's because in their worldview, people like her are not supposed to speak, and they're not supposed to be heard. In their worldview, if you're a woman, if you're a child, and if you're autistic, you're not supposed to be listened to. And I think it's kind of rad that she is listened to, and I think that's why they react as they do. But I mean, as much as I think that it's silly or strange that people attack Greta and other young women as they do because they're climate activists, I also think that's a problem. I think it's because I think this sort of thing, having sexist trolls and people who send you hate mail and pornography, even if you're 11 years old, I think it wears down our activists, and it drains the movement somehow. And And I think the people who know the best what that feels like and how to deal with it is feminists. And I wish that sometimes there was some older feminists like in the movement to help deal with this sort of garbage. And I think that's why I'm here. I'm hoping that to inspire some feminists, some older feminists watching, to maybe get involved and share their experiences in that way. I also would like to talk a little bit about why do people react this way? Why do they do it? Why do 11-year-olds and 17-year-old girls who are trying to save the world and trying to say, hey, maybe we could treat the planet a little better and listen to scientists, why do they aspire such vitriol and hatred from some completely random strangers? And I think, and this is the core of what I think it is because we live in a society where we tell, well, white men that they can have anything they want and they don't have to leave anything for anyone else. They can do whatever they like and they can take whatever they want. And when you have young girls standing up and saying, you can't do that, you can't, use all of nature, all of the planet, you have to think of other people, put them first, you have to think of other generations. You can't use everything and leave nothing for the rest of us. You can't destroy everything just because you want to. I think that really, really annoys, and I think it really, that really annoys because they weren't taught to think like that. And there's a Danish expression that I'm trying to translate in my head. It's called pilleved. I think they shake up their belief system, and they touch their belief system, and I think that's why they fucking hate them. Because here you have some people who are not supposed to speak out, and they're speaking out against a learned egoism, and that annoys the hell out of them. So yeah, and I just find it so strange. I find it so strange that there are people in this world who honestly think that the only thing that matters is what they want, and they don't have to care about anyone else. And when you tell them, actually you do have to care about someone else, it's like they have a meltdown or something. But it's also kind of tragic, because if we don't get them to change their behavior, they're gonna take the rest of us down with them. I think I need to take a little breath. I've been speaking for some time now, so I was wondering if you have any questions.
Some of you have any questions?
Jeg har du nogle spørgsmål?
Ja, jo. Just a minute.
I'm Johanna.
Hey.
I was thinking about what you said, that the movement is mostly young women, and the problem with trying to get through to the old white men.
Yeah.
What do you think what is the next move to make these old white men who have all the power to actually listen? What are you trying to do in your movement?
Thank you, Johanna, for the question. So the question, what would we like to do? What is the next step to try and get through to the old white men running the world, who are destroying it in the way that they're currently running it? I think it's difficult to plan out one next step, but I can say that many different next steps. So I think the most important step is staying is penetrating like the media landscape. It's because the biggest threat to climate activism is silence, in my opinion. If we don't even talk about the problem, if the problem isn't even talked about, it won't be solved. There's a lot of discussion within my movement about, how do we want people to talk about us? Do we want it to be positive? Do we want it to be like this or like that? I am mostly focused on being talked about at all, because that's how power stays in power. It's if you don't even talk about the problems. So what we try to do during these Corona times, we try to do like email storms, and we try to do kommentarbombardement, comment bomb. We stay very active on like social media. We try to pick out politicians and comment on their posts, and we try to do like Twitter storms and email campaigns. And we also try to write to a lot of we try to write them emails. We try to write to a lot of newspapers and things like that. A thing I've started to do is I've started to reach out to magazines where we're not usually talked about, and I figure out how can we get into this magazine. Like, if you know the magazine Hjemmet, this club really goes on for a long time.
Happy hour!
Woo! I'm just going to continue talking. So what I've been doing recently is I've tried to find magazines that people who are climate interested usually don't read so much of. So like Hjemmet, Familiejournalen, you know, these magazines for old people, for housewives. I mean, I'm sure those housewives can read all sort of things. I'm not discriminating against housewives, but you know, the stereotype is that housewives read them, and older people and stuff. And I look through them, and there's nothing about climate. And I think, okay, how can we put climate in this magazine? What do we have to do? And so what I've started doing is I've started writing like little stories. You know, these $1 stories. It's usually about a romantic drama, and it's not very elitist literature, but it's good fun. And I try to write a story like that, and try to sort of put some sort of climate theme in there. I think, and I think that sums up my first thing. The first step to reaching the old white men in charge is to stay in the media, is to stay in the cult, like in books, in TV, in newspapers, to stay visible at however we can do it. And there being Corona, it's a bit difficult to be visible, like present in gadebilledet, in the streets. So we tried to do it. I was not going to say in the sheets. I was going to say it in the newspapers, in the media. The second step, in my opinion, is to make it to raise the social costs of the status quo, and that sounds very, very technical, I think. But what I basically mean is if the way that the systems work is that if they can continue doing things as they've been doing it so far, if they can continue to pollute and not care about anything and not change their ways, then they will continue to do that. So we have to make it uneconomical to be a polluter. We have to make it uneconomical to be a politician who's not in favor of climate action, and I think that's also where I think there's a parallel between like feminism and climate activism. Like, we didn't start to take rape and sexual assault seriously until it started to cost people money. I mean, there was lots of people who were talking about and agitating for treating women with respect. It sounds very strange when I talk it like, and putting people who are krænker, and putting abuses in prison and stuff. There was lots of people talking about it, and there was lots being talked about it, and and everyone was like, now we have to stop, sexual assault and sexism in the workplace. But until, it started to cost people money, until we started boycotting artists and movie makers and magazines and products that supported these people, nothing happened. And it's a hard thing to say, but sometimes the greatest change happens when we start to hit people where it hurts, and that's in their money. So yeah, and I think we've started to see that already. I mean, I think a lot of businesses have started to do green stuff. Flying tiger. They were in a huge crisis because people suddenly thought, well, buying cheap stuff from China that breaks easily is not that good for the climate, and actually not that good for my money either and stuff. And then they stopped buying flying tigers, like cheap shit. And they were like in a huge crisis, and they were facing concourse. I don't know what, like they were bankruptcy and stuff. And then suddenly they changed, and they started they started working with NGOs to have more sustainable products, and they started talking with the suppliers, and they did all these things to become more sustainable. They weren't going to do it unless they were facing bankruptcy, and unless they knew that it was going to hurt them financially if they didn't. I mean, I really think that in these businesses there's a lot of great people, and I do think some of these businesses, there are people who actually care about the environment, but I think the people in business who care about the environment, they don't have a case to make unless they can say, if we don't do this, then the consumers and the state will make it difficult for us to survive financially. So yeah, and I wish I had like a third step, because 3 is a good number. But I'm also gonna be honest with you. I don't know. I can't tell the future. I don't know which way is the right way to go. I'm hoping every day that some wise sensei will show up at my door and tell me, this is the way to solve the climate crisis. You just have to do this and this. But I have no idea, really. I'm just doing my best here. And I think all of us are. It's very strange. We're in a situation where like the literal planet is at stake, and we have no idea really which way to go forth. We're just trying our best, and I'm like, oh, well, I hope this works, and if that doesn't work, well, we'll try something else. This is not how I pictured my life going when I was a kid. I will say that. I also wanted to talk about how feminists can help. How can you help? This is the part of my talk where I'm going to talk about that. So, obviously, if you want to help out with the climate crisis, that's completely up to you. I can't force you to do this. You should only do it if that's what you want to do. Because people doing things that they don't want to do, that's sort of a bad situation right there. But if you do want to help, these are the ways that you can help. you can go to climate strikes or other climate activism when it opens up again. You can become involved in a climate organization or a climate movement. We need volunteers for basically everything, and your experiences and your knowledge will be very much appreciated. What I really hope that more feminists will start doing is write about the climate crisis. I read like so many feminist blogs and websites and news. I follow, everyday sexism on Facebook. I follow POW, and the few times that there is something about climate, I'm like clapping in my little hands. Because I think most feminists recognize that this is a problem, but they don't write that much about it. And I wish they would, because when they do, they have a platform that could really benefit us. And I wish they would write about it also, because I would like to read about it. So not entirely selfless here. And I wish they would use their platform to help us out here. I also wish that they would, besides it being, an issue which affects women disproportionately, it's also being a movement made disproportionately from young women. I also think this is like the forefront of feminism in some way. When back in the day, when women wanted to be politically active, the only way that they could really do it was to get involved with feminism. Now that we have achieved a higher level of gender equality, there's more opportunity. Like, you can go into other areas, and I think I think the reason why there's a lot of young women here is because this is the new front line. I wish that older feminists would take advantage of that and write some good shit. I think my last recommendation is to go online and to follow, on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, follow these young women, the Greta Thunberg, Lily Pratt from Holland, Netherlands, Vanessa Nakate from Uganda. I can remember the names, it's just when I'm put on the spot, it makes it a little bit difficult. Lukina Till, there's a Luisa Neubauer. There's a lot of really cool young women that are more prominent within the movement. If you go and you follow them on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and you'll probably see that they get a lot of shit. Like, they get a lot of trolls and sexist comments and people being like mean. And it would be cool if you go there and you'd fight that hate and leave some good comments and leave some love, and also tell the people leaving mean comments to go away. That is also a small way that you can contribute. Know that you all have busy lives and you have lots of things to do. So being a social media activist, that's a low entry bar. And if you would write to like newspapers or to politicians, that would be really cool. And I'm sure you can come up with ways of being active on your own. You're pretty smart and creative people, and there's many ways to do this.